I just want to let you guys know that what you're watching is actually one of the franchises that David and I was recording for Horror Month this year. So we did all 4 of these movies, and I'm going to edit all 4 of these reviews that we did and bring them to you so you can see what we were working on.
You thought the year was scary so far. You haven't seen anything yet.
Welcome back for Horror Month 2020. This movie series, I haven't seen all the films in this, but I did see this one. This is House 2, The Second Story. Way back when, I saw it on VHS, never got to go to the movies to see it, but I remember the first time I ever saw this, the biggest reason I wanted to see it was because of one certain character in it. And man, I couldn't wait to see this movie, and then when I saw it, I was like, okay, this is not what I was expecting out of this, but okay.
So it's coming to you from this awesome box set from Arrow, and each individual film has its own really cool new artwork. So let's take a look at the original artwork from the poster and what Arrow has done with the new one. Alright, so talk about weird. Let's get weird, Vince.
So like I was saying, the one thing about this movie was Fangoria magazines. We used to watch and live and breathe Fangoria magazines, and the one character that kept showing in here was this gunslinger character. And they kept showing pictures of him, and I'm like, man, he looks so good. And then they had his horse, and the horse was a dead horse. You could see its skeletal remains and everything, and he would ride in on this dead horse. And I was like, oh my god, I can't wait to see this thing. Then I watched this movie, and I can tell you, the first time I ever saw this movie, I was completely disappointed in it. Completely disappointed with it. I was like, this is terrible. This is nothing like the first one. It's not even the same house. It's not even the same people. It's not even, I was like, I didn't get it.
Going into this movie, I had never saw it, and something I mentioned in the last review, I've been having a blast with this October, this horror month, because we are reviewing franchises I've never seen. I've never seen any of these other house films except for the first one. So going into this, I didn't have a clue. I had no clue what this freaking movie was about. But let me tell you, Vince, I love this movie. I loved it. It is so freaking weird. And the best part about this movie, it's freaking hilarious. I was laughing out loud through half this movie. Oh my god, it's funny.
And that's the thing with this film, is it got a lot more goofy than the first one.
It's a straight out comedy. I mean, it really is. It's comedy. It's funny.
Yeah, it's not really the horror dark comedy that the first one was.
No, this is a straight up comedy.
Yeah, and like I said, the first time I saw this, watching it for the first time, that's what disappointed me in it. I mean, it wasn't that I didn't laugh at it, and I expected it to have the dark humor, but it was so goofy and so outrageously weird, I just didn't get it at the time. But now, watching it now, I'm like, okay, I kind of see what they were trying to do with it now, especially watching it back to back like this.
I don't know who any of these actors in here, except for one, obviously, but I think they're all really good, solid actors. I liked...
You don't recognize any of these people?
No.
I kind of
recognized the guy's friend, but I didn't recognize the actual main actor.
Yeah, he's been in lots of other comedies and television and that. But his girlfriend is Laura Park Lincoln from Friday the 13th Part 7.
Oh. Oh, okay.
Okay.
And his best friend is the, I guess, caretaker, or the Renfield of Fright Night.
Yeah, see, I knew that guy. I knew I'd seen him somewhere. So that, yeah, okay. It's like, I know that guy, but I couldn't remember what movie he was in.
Yeah, he was in Fright Night. And then there's a pretty big cameo in here.
And it's the best. I mean, this is like the best character in this entire movie. It is awesome. We had the first one, we had Norm, and now who do we have? Cliff! Cliff shows up.
Oh, well, I actually wasn't talking about him, but okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, Cliff is in it. And plays such a great character. Oh my God. He was just killing me. He was just freaking killing me.
Yeah, so they bring in Cliff, or John Ratzenberger. And it's funny when you see him show up too, because you hear his voice and you immediately go to the Pixar films.
And his character is so weird, just like the rest of this film. He's so weird, and he's an electrician. And he comes in there, and one of my favorite parts is he has a light bulb. And he comes over with a screwdriver and hits the light bulb and breaks it. And he's like, this is one of those foreign jobs. Oh my God, they killed me. Oh, it's funny. He's just hilarious in this movie.
This is also produced by Sean S. Cunningham, who did the Friday the 13th films. So, once again, we're getting some of the Friday the 13th people in here. And one big cameo in here is a cameo of a guy in a gorilla suit. And the guy in the gorilla suit is Kane Hodder from Jason Goes to Hell and Jason X and Friday the 13th, 7 and 8. He played Jason in all those films. And in here he plays this character at a party and he's in a gorilla suit.
Everything about this film makes no sense, and that's why I love it. It's so funny and so weird. It's like you take the first one and then you do crack, and this is what you get for the second one. It's crazy. It's like, oh my God. Like the first 10 minutes of the movie, they go out and they dig up a grave, and it's their great-great-grandfather who is a cowboy, and he comes back to life, and you're like, what am I watching? What is this?
Yeah, that's pretty much this movie.
Yeah, but I love it. I just love the imagination, and it's just funny. It's just so funny. And I love that character of that cowboy. He's a zombie, and he didn't even know he was a zombie, which I kind of like too. He thought he was still, a young guy until he realizes now he's rotten. And I just love that character so much that the guy who portrayed him was so good. And it's goofy, but at the same time, he portrayed him as a really great character.
It is weird. It is goofy, and it's just flat out goofy. And yeah, it's a straight up comedy. But there's compared to the first film, it's not quite as good. It's the story is it's all right. It's an okay story, but it's just so strange and out there, and there's lots of parts in this film that just go kind of nowhere. There's a whole scene where he runs into, I guess, an old girlfriend, and she kisses him right in front of his current girlfriend's boss, played by Bill Maher, and then they go into another room and they go into another dimension and they totally forget that storyline. Then they come back to it and it just, for all of 10 seconds, they come back to it and then it just disappeared. I didn't get the whole thing of constantly hitting that concrete block out front either. There's this there's these blocks that are stacked up in front of the house. And every car that pulls up there, even police cars and everything, every car that pulls up there knocks these blocks over. It's like, okay, why?
Doesn't matter. Don't make sense. Who cares? It's just a running thing.
It's just, it's that all the way through here. And there's like a part where they go into the Jurassic era and they come out with a pterodactyl that's obviously a puppet.
Well, yeah.
And it's like, okay, he's carrying around a pterodactyl. Then there's this dog.
Exactly.
This dog caterpillar thing. And it's like...
Yeah. I totally accept all of it. Dog caterpillar, You know, pterodactyl, bring it on. Get the weirder it gets, the more I liked it.
Yeah, it was weird, and I'm not saying that it was. I mean, it's weird, but it's like, okay, so what's the point in it? It's kind of like, where did this even come from? Why?
But that's the point, is it don't need to have a why or a who or a what. It was just entertaining. It was entertaining. It was funny. Just like freaking Cliff. I mean, one of my favorite other parts with him is he's like, guys, we have a problem over here. And they walk over there and he's standing there and he's like, yeah, I think you have an interdimensional portal in your wall. And it's like, what? And it's just great. It's great stuff. It's fantastic stuff. Don't need to make sense. It's just fun.
It's like there's parts of it that are just like the first film, and that would have been one of them. But then there's other things in it that are like, wow, it's funny. It's just that it's just so weird and so out there. It doesn't make any sense as to why it's even there. And then there's just parts that just like they started something and then they just didn't end it. They just didn't they just, let it go and didn't finish with it. Or like there's something missing out of it. Like they deleted something.
The only part that I can say that, what you're talking about there, I didn't see that in any of it. I mean, I think the reason they got rid of the girlfriend was because they didn't need her anymore. And they needed to have a plot thing in there because they knew where it was going to go towards the end. And they just didn't need the girlfriend anymore. And they just kind of put the whole other girlfriend thing in there. So she left because they didn't need her. I mean, she wasn't really part of the plot. She wasn't really, she was there, but they just got rid of her. And I think that was the whole point of bringing the other girlfriend in because they didn't need that person anymore.
But they didn't just get rid of his girlfriend from the beginning. They got rid of the second girlfriend that comes in.
Yeah, because they didn't need them.
Then they go into the interdimensional portal and they found another girl who doesn't say anything. There's no lines for her whatsoever through the rest of the film. She's just there. And that's what I mean. It's like there's stuff that just happens and you're like, okay,
If you have Vince, if you have a movie that has dinosaurs in it, that has pterodactyls in it, that has caterpillar dogs in there, that has rotten zombie cowboys in it, that has interdimensional portals in it, that has things of Egypt in there, that has the Old West in there, who cares? I mean, it's like it's just there. Just accept it because it's fun.
Well, anyway.
Well, anyway, if they would have just stuck with the whole idea of this crystal skull from they're doing the whole crystal skull thing like Indiana Jones.
And I think they did it. I think they did a lot better in this.
So they do this whole thing with a crystal skull and the cowboys, and if they would have just stuck with that story on its own, I think it would have been a lot scarier. I think it would have been a lot more entertaining that way. I think it would have been a lot more solid of a story. But because it does go off into all these weird little tangents, it's like, okay, it's where it gets like, okay, none of this makes any sense.
But it's not supposed to. It's just supposed to be entertaining and funny.
All right, well, normally you would have been like, oh my God, this didn't make any sense. I know you would have said that.
I literally was laughing through this whole movie. Every other 5-10 minutes, it's just funny entertainment, and it's not a horror movie by any stretch of the imagination. It's more of a Twilight Zone episode. And I think, I haven't watched the other two movies, but I'm assuming that's sort of the thing in this movie is that everyone is going to be trying to be, I hope so, weirder than the other one. They upped the weird scale in this one about 1,000. One thing I will say, that you're saying that stuff don't make any sense in this movie, the one scene that I would say that I was kind of like, okay, well that was weird. Pterodactyl and dinosaurs and Cliff, now that wasn't weird, interdimensional. But the one thing I thought was weird is they come out of this closet or they come out somewhere and the entire house is full of people and they're having a Halloween party. And his friend's like, oh yeah, I invited all these people over. And I'm like, what? Out of nowhere, the whole house is full of people. And I was like, well, that's cool. Now they're having a Halloween party. But the thing is, all the people just disappeared too.
Yeah, I forgot to mention Halloween party. Forgot to mention that to you.
Because why not? I mean, you have a freaking caterpillar dog. Why not have a Halloween party?
Just, there's parts in here that like it was supposed to be something, and then they just didn't do anything with it. They just stuck it in there.
Yep, I loved it. Some movies just don't need to make sense. Some movies are just enjoyable weirdness. And that's exactly, I think, I would explain this movie. Just enjoyable weirdness and funny. And I liked all the acting in it. I thought the effects were really great. I love the stop motion stuff. Stop motion stuff was excellent in this. With the dinosaurs and the pterodactyl flying around and stuff. I thought they looked great. So overall, again, this is a weird movie to review for Horror Month because I wouldn't even call it a horror movie at all. It's sort of a horror. It's more of a comedy horror movie. So, but I loved it. It was just so. I love weird movies. That's why I like this so much. So I'm giving it a 5 out of 5. So Vince, what do you think of this movie?
Didn't think the story was as good as the first one, but I liked the whole cowboy thing. I loved the way they looked.
No.
I loved the cowboys in here. Both of them. The bad one and the good one. The grandpa and his counterpart. It was just fantastic. And I love that whole part of the story. But then there's the other parts of the story that are just way out in left field and straight up goofy. And I would give this movie, House 2, The Second Story, a 3 out of 5. So, of course, the first extra is an audio commentary, which has the writer, Ethan Wiley, as well as the producer, Sean S. Cunningham, doing the commentary. And this commentary, I have to say, was somewhat better than the commentary on House. And it was somewhat better because it was just those two. And it was just them kind of bouncing things back and forth and talking about the film and talking how they made it and what everything that went into it. So it was informative, and it is interesting to listen to, and actually I learned what I didn't know in this review. So of course I talked about it in this review, how weird this movie was and how I didn't get it when it came out in 1987. And now that I've listened to the commentary and watched the making of it on this extra as well, I get it. I get it a lot better than when I was watching the movie and not knowing anything about it. And one of the things that was pretty obvious in the movie, though, even watching it way back then and watching it now, was that it went very fast. They wrote it very fast. They just hammered it out as quickly as possible so they could have another sequel. And it shows. I mean, that does show in the movie because, as I said in the review, there's parts of this film that just don't go anywhere. They start it out and they don't finish it. And unfortunately, that's something they don't really talk about in the audio commentary as to why they didn't finish some of this stuff. Like the whole thing with the girlfriends. It's none of it really went anywhere. It was like suddenly just characters are just poof, they're gone, and there's no real ending to any of that. And like I said, unfortunately, this audio commentary really doesn't lend too much to what happened there, but it does give a lot of information about behind the scenes and how they made the movie and what they went through and in writing it and everything. So it also made a lot more sense to the fact that they were trying to, at this point, do what I also said in the review, was make it its own story, and each House movie was going to be its own story. So that made it pretty obvious as to why this movie turned out the way it did. So the actual first extra on here is a featurette called It's Getting Weirder, the making of House 2, the second story. And like the first House Blu-ray, it's also Arrow Video and Red Shirt Pictures doing this featurette. And once again, a good featurette, a decent featurette. I wouldn't say it's anything spectacular. It doesn't really blow you away, but it also gives you the same information kind of that's in the audio commentary, but a little more in depth. And you get to hear from all the other actors that are in the film, like Ari Gross, as well as Jonathan Stark, and Lar Park Lincoln, and even the model, the playmate, actually, that was the last girlfriend in the film. She was actually a Playmate of the Year for Playboy, of all things. So she even is on there, and she's talking about the film. So of course they have Sean S. Cunningham and Ethan Wiley, and there's a lot of interaction between them, more than the actors, but it's a decent featurette. It is really, actually really good. And I think it also gives a lot more information than what the first House featurette did. So there's a little bit more information for this movie than there was for that one. And it's a good one. It's a good featurette. Worth checking out. The next featurette is a vintage behind-the-scenes featurette of House, the second story, that was filmed way back in 1986 or 87 when they were filming the movie. And once again, they show a little more behind-the-scenes stuff. It's much like the vintage footage that was on the other House Blu-ray, the first one. And once again, it's decent. It's not anything I would say outstanding or spectacular, but it's worth watching, and you do learn some things from it. And of course, what we got left, the trailers, the teaser trailers, the TV spots, the still gallery. So all of that is pretty much standard, and of course the still gallery got photos that were taken behind the scenes, as well promos and just photos in general. So of everything when they were making the film. So overall, the extras were really good. I enjoyed them. It was interesting to find out more about House 2, and now that I've found out more about House 2, I understand the film a lot better than when I saw it the very first time. And even I understand it a little bit more now that I've watched it again, and now that I know more about it. So watching this extra footage or extra features and things really does lend itself some interesting stuff that you go, oh, okay, now I kind of understand. But at the same time, it's like, well, you could have put that in the movie. Maybe some of this stuff you could have put in the movie so we'd understand it better.
Okay, so I loved it. If you like weird, funny movies that don't make any sense, that don't really need to make sense to be good and funny, you will love House 2. Now, I was actually just looking at House 3 because up until we started doing this, these reviews, I didn't know there was a House 3 or House 4. So I just looked into the disc here for the next one, because I haven't watched it yet. And on the original artwork here, it says, House was spooky, House 2 was weird, House 3 is scary as hell. So, it's agreeing with you, Vince. It's weird. It's weird. The poster agreed with you.
Well, of course it did. Because it was. It was weird. It was weird. I'm not saying it was altogether a terrible movie. And I'm not saying I didn't have any fun with it. I'm just saying that it's so weird and so out there and so goofy that it's like, I don't get it. And I didn't the first time I saw it. But I'm thinking that the way this is supposed to go is sort of like Creepshow in the way that each story is going to be a different story. Or like Twilight Zone. Each story is going to be a different story. And each story is going to be scary or weird or funny or whatever. That's where I think it's going. And I did know that they made a 3 and a 4. But I never saw 3 and 4. You completely disappeared on me.
Yeah, the phone just hung up.
You went into that alternate dimension, didn't you?
And Norm's like, oh, well, the door opened up. I think there's got an alternate dimension in here. Loved it. Loved this character. Anyway.
All of a sudden I hear, boop.
But you know what? We're going to come back tomorrow and review House 3. We don't care if you're 18 or older. You could be 6. We don't care. All of our Maniacs can be whatever age you want to be, because that's how it runs on Horror Month. It doesn't matter. Age limits don't matter here.
Yeah, we just show you a bunch of crap anyway.
Yeah, and nobody watches anyway, so we don't really care. But I'm actually looking forward to this one because it's 18, so it might be. It looks like they might go totally do something weird with this. I don't know.